everyone, I am Amanda from Mandy Lynn Plans. Welcome back to another fountain pen video. Today we are going to be talking all about fountain pen ink and its different properties. There's all kinds of different things that you can find in fountain pen ink. And in order to talk about that well, we're also going to talk about paper. I feel like paper doesn't get talked about enough, so I want to make sure that you understand the role that paper plays into the different ink properties. So we are going to be testing out, I have a Rhodia pad here we're gonna test. I have just normal copy paper, Tomoe River paper. This is, I think everybody in the community agrees that the best way to see shimmer and sheen are on Tomoe River paper. This is what I use. I cut it up and make my little baseball sized cards, ink swatches. If you've seen me post any of my ink of the week voting, that's all on Tomoe River. And then I also have this Triumph by Clairefontaine. So these three are all definitely going to be much better to use with fountain pen ink over just normal copy paper. And you will see as I demonstrate all four kinds of paper. Oh, this is the 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. So I have my paper. We have lots of different ink to chat about. The first that we're going to talk about is this Noodler's Black. So if you need something that will be eternal, completely waterproof, the creator of Noodler's even goes as far to say bulletproof on paper, the connection and the bond that it creates with the paper. He has several bulletproof inks. If you need one for maybe writing checks or something where you need the ink to stay and doesn't wash off, I definitely recommend Noodler's Black. So just to get started, we are going to swab all of the paper. So this is the Rhodia normal copy paper, Tomoe River, and Clairefontaine. I'm just gonna write, whoops, not, it's gonna be Noodler's on this one. So here we have the four different papers, and this is the Rhodia. So you can see how that looks. The copy paper is definitely what's called feathering. So what happens with normal copy paper is that the ink spreads and the paper absorbs it. So if you can see on the writing especially, you can see little pieces kind of jutting out, and that's called feathering. So this is the normal copy paper. The Tomoe River paper is not yet dry, and part of the reason that shimmer and sheen and all the things that we'll chat about in a little bit work so well on this paper is that it has a special coating and the ink does not sink into the paper. The paper allows the ink to dry on top. And so that is why you don't get the feathering on this Tomoe River paper. And then the Clairefontaine is almost completely dry, but not quite. You can still see that it's a little bit wet. So definitely if you're wanting to write a letter or something, I would choose the Clairefontaine over just normal copy paper or even the Rhodia. But you might be able to tell a difference in the depth of color here. It definitely looks more saturated on these papers than on the Rhodia. And you'll notice that as we go through and do different colors. Next, we're gonna talk about shading. Now I have here Noodler's. This used to be called Apache Sunset. I bought this a long time ago and he has since changed the name to Southwest Sunset. But it is the same beautiful ink. Now we have the same four pieces of paper still. And you can see the shading the best on this Tomoe River paper. And again, it hasn't completely dried yet, but in the word shading, you might notice that there are pieces of the letters that have a darker section and then a lighter section, and that's what we're referring to whenever we talk about shading. So it's one ink, but it gives several variations of color, different saturation levels, depending on where the ink settles. So you can see that on the copy paper, there is basically zero shading. Again, because the ink has just completely absorbed into the paper instead of the paper allowing the ink to dry on top. Definitely seeing a theme here with the Rhodia paper. The colors do not look quite as saturated. And again, that's whenever it's a nice deep color. So here we have the deepest colors in the Tomoe River and the Clairefontaine paper. If I had to give these a rating for shading, I would give Tomoe River the best, and then Clairefontaine, Rhodia, and then the copy paper. Shading is something that you can see on a variety of different inks. There aren't specific shading inks that you'll see in the title whenever you go to purchase your fountain pen inks. But the rest of the things that we're going to talk about are special priorities of the ink themselves. So we're going to talk about sheen, we're going to talk about shimmer, we're going to talk about scented inks, and we're going to talk about chameleon inks. So before we get into the different properties, I wanted to do a standard ink. So the rest of the inks I'm going to show you are by Diamine. They're all from the Inkvent calendar from 2022. This first one, it's just a standard ink. It's called Bliss, and I kind of wanted to use it as a control as I show you the rest of the inks. So first up, we're going to talk about shimmer. Now, I use a lot of shimmer inks. If you saw the video before this one, it was how to clean out the shimmer inks in your pen. First thing I want to do though is flip it upside down really fast, and you will see how the shimmer settles at the bottom of the bottle. So real fast, you see all of that shimmer. So it's really important whenever you're using shimmer to gently, I like to just gently kind of swish the ink back and forth instead of like shaking it really hard and creating bubbles. I just like to gently swish it back and forth, and that just incorporates all of the shimmer into the ink. Since we're doing the swatches, I want to make sure that we can see the beautiful shimmer in there. And so after a while, you will begin to see the shimmer is not all settled at the bottom there anymore. And so that's when we know that we are ready to go ahead and swatch this up. This is called Yule Log. So we're gonna start, and I am dipping this every time off to the side here. This one, I wonder if it just didn't get, there we go. And then I've been using my glass dip pen to write. And that's just so that I didn't have to clean out a whole bunch of fountain pens for this video. Whenever I go to do my swatches, I do use this pen, and that allows me to just swatch a whole lot of different colors at a time. Okay, so as they dry, you're gonna be able to see some of the shimmer. This isn't completely dry yet, but can probably see some of the shimmer there. The copy paper is completely dry, and it is surprising how much of the shimmer you can see on the copy paper. So there's the glitter from the copy paper. Again, you can see how bad it's feathering out from the letters. It's just like this spreading into the paper. The Tomoe River still has quite a bit to dry. So I'm gonna show you the Clairefontaine first. So there's the shimmer. So I think for the most part, shimmer is the easiest to understand just by the name. If you had to guess what a shimmering ink was, you would guess that there were little tiny bits of glitter, and that's exactly what it is. We are going to move on. Okay, so next up we are going to talk about chameleon, and this is a chameleon and a shimmer ink. So what chameleon means, I think it might be specific to Diamine. I've never seen any chameleon inks other than Diamine. If there are other companies that have chameleon inks, I am just not aware, but these inks change colors depending on the lighting. So it kind of looks like different colors depending on the light. And this also has some shimmer in it as well. So I'm going to gently swish the shimmer around. We're going to swatch it out just like the others. This is Spiced Apple. Again, these are all from the Inkvent calendar by Diamine. So this one is fun. It almost has like a green look to it in the different angle, the different light. So maybe you can see there the glitter and the green. This is on the copy paper. It's the one that dried it first. It actually bled through on the Tomoe River paper. I don't recommend using copy paper for fountain pens, just in general. So here you can see it on the Rhodia, the shimmer, and then that green. So the chameleon, how it changes colors in different lights and different angles. And you can also see the shimmer on that Yule Log better now that it's dried a little bit more. Again, the Tomoe River is still very wet, but here is the Clairefontaine. You can see the shimmer and the change in color. So the chameleon on that Spiced Apple. So next up we have a scented ink. This is called Pick Me Up. I know you can't smell it, to be completely honest. I still can't smell from 2020. I bet you can't guess where I lost my sense of smell and taste. But anyway, scented inks do exist. It's kind of a fun twist. I think the scent only lasts for maybe a couple of days. And this ink is also supposed to be a sheen ink, but I don't really see the sheen very well. So I went and I grabbed another ink that is a sheen ink, and this is from the previous year, so 2021's Inkfint calendar. This is called Polar Glow, and you will be able to see the sheen much better on this one. So while these are drying, sheen is similar to chameleon in the way that you'll see another ink color other than the pretty deep blue that you see now. Once it dries along the edge, you will see this like metallic-y reddish color. A lot of the sheen inks that I have seen have been a blue with a red or a teal with a red. There are other kinds of sheen, but I wonder if it's easiest for them, however they make this, to do it with red and blue. In my experience, that's just the most that I've seen. While we're waiting on those to dry, because these are very wet and they do take a while to dry, the sheening and the shimmers and all of that. The last two that we're gonna do are combination inks. So this is Serendipity. It is a combination, both shimmer and sheen ink. So I'm gonna go ahead and swatch out those next. All right, so while that one is drying, the last ink is called Arctic Blast, and it is a chameleon and a sheen. So this will be a really fun combo to try as well. All right, so those are the last ones. We will just need to let these dry. Okay, so the first set that we did are mostly dried. Again, we have the Clairefontaine paper, Tomoe River, the copy paper, and then the Rhodia. Overall, the Rhodia is definitely the least saturated. The Tomoe River is showing most of the saturation here. And again, that's just because of the coating on this paper that doesn't allow the ink to sink and absorb into the paper. Copy paper does that the most. So here for the shading, definitely the winner is the Tomoe River paper. And remember, the shading is whenever it's a deeper, more saturated color where the ink pools, usually showing up most whenever you use print letters because you pick up your pen more often, and so it will leave back most of the ink there. So you can see the difference in how the paper does for the shading. The Bliss was our control ink. No special properties with that, no shimmer, sheen, any of that. The Yule Log, you'll see the shimmer on this ink here. This is the Clairefontaine. Again, mostly the most shimmer here with the Tomoe River. The copy paper does actually show quite a bit more shimmer than what I expected. And then the Rhodia here for Yule Log. And then you may have already seen a little sneak of the Spiced Apple, but here, remember, this is the chameleon ink where in the different lighting or different angles, you can see the green on that shimmer. Again, definitely looking the best on this Tomoe River paper. So you can see how in this angle it is very green, and here you can hardly see any of the green. So that's what makes the chameleon inks fun. Here on the copy paper, it looks pretty much just like shimmer. You can only kind of see a hint of green. It's actually picking up more on camera than it is for my eyes. And then here, the Rhodia does pick it up quite a bit. So those are our first ink swatches. And then these last ones still aren't completely dry, but we can start the copy paper here. I will show you, those are completely dry. So remember, Pick Me Up was a scented ink. It smells like chocolate. Polar Glow has a sheen around it, but here on the copy paper, you cannot see any of the sheen. Serendipity is a shimmer and sheening ink, and again, you can't really see any of that. And then Arctic Blast, you can see some of the shimmer here. And this was the chameleon and sheen. So copy paper, definitely do not recommend using fountain pen inks. They feather and they just don't allow you to see the fun properties that fountain pen inks offer. Here for the Rhodia, if I tilt it in, like you might be able to see some. Rhodia isn't the best for showing sheen. So some of these you can't really even tell that it's sheening at all. The very top of this Polar Glow, I can see some, but I'm not sure if it's picking up. So again, Rhodia, it's better than copy paper, but it's definitely not the best for showing sheen. So then we have the Tomoe River paper, and here for that Polar Glow, you can definitely see the beautiful red sheen on that, and it's not completely dry, so it will be even more bold whenever it is done. Serendipity here was the shimmer and sheen. The sheen on Polar Glow is more noticeable. I think maybe just because of the shimmer they added to this may have taken away from some of the sheen, but you can tell, like, look at how just normal these look, and then whenever you look at them in the right angle, you can see the beautiful sheen. So very fun. And then Arctic Blast is the chameleon again and sheen. So you can see maybe some of the red. It's not coming up as well as that beautiful Polar Glow. So that's the Tomoe River paper. And then again, on the Clairefontaine, you will be able to see some of the sheen, and it's not completely dried yet. Some of the sheen and shimmer and chameleon, but Tomoe River paper is definitely my choice if you want to see these beautiful inks and the fun properties. So today I hope you learned something about the fun properties of fountain pen inks and the importance of quality paper. Let me know your favorites in the comments. So let me know what kind of paper is your favorite and then what fountain pen property is your favorite. If I could only pick one, I would definitely pick Tomoe River paper. I actually use the Hobonichi planers, which use Tomoe River paper so that my fountain pen inks always show that shimmer and sheen as intended by the creators of the ink. And then if I could only pick one, I would pick shimmer, with sheen as a very close second. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.
Different kind of paper.
Well, these are the same kind of papers though. So I have 4 kinds of paper and I just cut them in half.
Oh, so you're doing different colors of ink?
I'm showing them what shimmer ink is like and what sheen ink and what shading, and there's even scented ink.
Where's the scented ink?
Smell this. Does it smell like chocolate?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Is all of this chocolate?
Yep.